We need to deal with the root of this evil rather than the fruit of this evil. And we need to ask ourselves some tough questions.
Your vote isn't just affecting you. Your kids' kids are coming. They are going to have to deal with what we choose today.
Start praying to God for wisdom, praying to God for ways that people can start to open their eyes to really the truth that's taking place around them, because this is such a critical moment in history.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Revelation in the News. I'm your host, Zach Drew.
And I'm your host, Sasha Vols.
We want to be one of your homes for alternative news, and we want to cover the most breaking, most controversial news of the week that we believe you need to know the truth about. And I wanted to bring in somebody this week, a special guest named Darren Parker, because I wanted somebody with credentials, somebody with validity to talk about such a subject like what's happening this week in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have Darren Parker with us, who is a former chief of police. He's actually retired in 2008 after serving 20 years in law enforcement, and 14 of those years were spent as a firearms and SWAT instructor and trainer, and also even a SWAT officer and a SWAT leader. He's provided over 2,000 hours of training in high-risk tactics situations alone. He's also a graduate of the FBI Central States Law Enforcement Executive Director School and was awarded the J. Edgar Hoover Memorial Gold Medal Award. He's been quoted in actually several different magazines, including Inside Homeland Security magazine and also Combat Tactics magazine. Darren, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you, Darren.
Wow, okay, so a lot's going on. The Charlotte incident, what took place. So that if you don't know what happened, this is just the very basic details. There was an armed African-American citizen named Keith Lamont Scott. And what happened was he exited his vehicle with a handgun while police were repeatedly telling him to stop his weapon. And the police felt that he was using deadly force. And so what happened was they took action. And an officer named Brentley Vincent, who is also an African-American, shot and killed him. And this was all because he posed a deadly threat to officers and wouldn't drop his handgun. And so what resulted from that is some very intense protests and very intense riots that really looks like a war zone. Just the first night of protesting, 16 cops were injured. 16, okay? In the first night alone. The Walmart there has been looted. You had citizens out shouting, "We out here like the Taliban," likening themselves to those of ISIS, Islamic extremists. We out here like the Taliban. Motorists have been hit by rocks. They've been looting semis, catching the trailers on fire, even looting the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Reporters have been attacked, attempting to throw photographers in the fire, and even there have been instances of people being beaten, begging for mercy, and no mercy was shown. And this all took place on the first night of protest. Now, that huge long list that I just stated, there was only one arrest made.
Wow.
One arrest made. Darren, once again, thank you for being on this show with us today. What in the world is going on?
We are reaping what we have sown. All those statistics you just read off, and with one arrest, and I will say this, that the reason why one arrest was made was because when I say we, I'm talking about the law enforcement community and the politicians and everyone that's running the communities. They are so afraid to look like the racist, the prejudiced, the bigots that we are accused of being.
And I was afraid that was going to be your answer. Because think, out of all those things I just stated, one arrest was made. So it's because the law enforcement are scared. Now, here's the thing: it was actually. Is it just white law enforcement that's scared? Is it African American law enforcement that's scared? Because here's the thing: the man who actually ended up shooting the individual because he posed a deadly threat to the law enforcement, he himself was an African American, but yet still there was only one arrest. So the law enforcement's scared right now.
Yeah, and let's make sure we draw a line here. It's not that the law enforcement are fearful or scared or afraid to do their job. They're not. But because of the scrutiny that they have come under, it is absolutely terrifying. They're worried The last thing that officers want to be accused of, or officers being scrutinized over, are racial prejudice or biases. And so that is what is occurring today. They go out and they answer calls, and they are so fearful. And then they are told that we are being told to stand down, to relax, stay back, don't enforce the laws that we enforce. And so it almost appears as we are too timid to do what we're supposed to do. And it gets so out of hand and so out of control that these things happen.
America has come down over the last, almost 10 years now, that basically if there's ever a cop shooting of an African-American individual, and whether we know the details or not, there's going to be riots. Is that what we've come to in America? Why is it that it appears that police in the last few years have been under more scrutiny dealing with the use of deadly force? Okay, so has it escalated? Is there something to this?
Absolutely. We have come under more scrutiny. And it's not just in deadly force situations, and I'll tell you why. And scrutiny is not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. Scrutiny is not a bad thing. And anytime an officer uses force, it is scrutinized. They report it. It is investigated. Now, but the situation we found ourselves in, especially recently over the last 7-8 years, with the things that happen, it's the rhetoric coming out of the White House. It's the rhetoric coming from our leaders in our communities that are fueling this scrutiny. Again, scrutiny. Let me make another statement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about in general, all right? Not the exceptions. There are exceptions in everything. There are good doctors, there are bad doctors. There are good police officers, there are bad police officers. There are bad politicians, and there are bad politicians. Oh, I said that twice. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's great. There you go.
But see, there's good and bad and everything. But let's talk about in general, the overall, okay? Look, if someone is bad, are we going to stop all bad? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it will come out, and let the due process, let the system take care of itself. But we jump to conclusion. We have leaders that are saying things that are fueling this, not calming it, not reassuring people we will get to the bottom of this, and if it's wrong, they will pay. We don't have leaders doing that.
Yeah, and you see, and here's the thing, I'm 26, and I don't remember this growing up. And even, if you just simply study history, yes, there was some, just in the past, 50, 60, 70 years, there was some very intense situations that took place in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And then after we got through that era, it seemed to die down. Racism in America started to die down. Then we had some more isolated events in the early 90s that, it got a lot of media attention, and then once again, it died down. Now, see, and that was basically it. I don't remember. It seems like every 6 months, something crazy is happening right now where the racial pot is being stirred, and it feels like that racism is coming back to America, and I absolutely hate it.
It's awful. And every American should hate it. Not white, not black. Every American should hate it. It is absolutely, this administration has absolutely divided this country. The words, his rhetoric is so divisive, and it's occurred. You now have kids in schools taking sides. What are we doing? It is absolutely insanity. But when you look at our leaders, and they are putting forth this rhetoric before they know information. Let's look back. You're talking about, yes, and throughout history, we've had incidences throughout history. We have racial incidents throughout history. And years and years and years ago, it was more prevalent, more often. However, in the recent, we haven't had that much. Now, in the past 7 or 8 years, it's ramped up dramatically. But let's look at this. The incidences that have occurred, let's go back as they started ramping up in the recent years. You remember the Cambridge police incident with the professor?
Yes.
Okay. This was right after Obama had been elected president. they hold a press conference, and I believe, I don't totally remember, but I believe he was talking about maybe the healthcare or something like that. But in this, at the very end, there was a question given to him about this incident.
And explain this incident for the viewers that may not remember
Sure.
it.
The incident is Cambridge Police Department was called to investigate a possible burglary. And when they responded there, they get there and they encounter the homeowner. Then they don't have this information, but they encounter the homeowner, and right from the get-go, there was not very much cooperation. Mm-hmm. And so things escalated, and to the point of he ended up was arrested, handcuffed and arrested, and it blew up. Mm-hmm. Okay, so but now go back to this press conference that the president held. So in this press conference, he was asked a question about this incident, and he said the first two things he said was, "Well, I know this professor, so I'm probably going to be a little biased here, and I don't have all the information." Period, done, the end. It should have ended right there.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, he had to go on and say that this happened, and I believe this happened, I believe this happened, and the police acted stupidly. And from that moment on, it has not changed.
But you said that he specifically said that he did not have all of the information.
First two things he said.
And that he
I'm
was
probably going
biased.
to be a little biased.
So how can you say that you don't have all the information, but yet the police acted stupidly?
Answer that one for me.
See, he's jumping to conclusions.
Well, even without the fact, he's already putting it out there to get it into the minds of the people, saying, no matter what happened, the police acted stupidly, so this is what you need to believe from here on out.
Now, yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. Now, there are, not taken away from what, there are some black Americans out there that believe the injustices have been done to them. Mm-hmm. All right. And we could talk about theories and all that. They believe that their sense of that is real. Not taking anything away from that. But that has just fueled that. Mm-hmm. And so now everyone believes, or I say everyone, a lot of people now have this belief that that's what has occurred. We are being oppressed. We are being, it's insanity. It is absolutely, no calming from our leaders.
Wow.
They don't, anyway.
See, and I'm seeing some hypocrisy here, because I want to go back to what we said in just a moment ago, that he did not have all the information, but yet he was jumping to conclusions. Why would he jump to conclusions? I mean, think about this. This is the man that every single terrorist incident where the man is either on the phone pledging allegiance to ISIS, they're killing people or knifing people while yelling Allahu Akbar, means Allah is the greatest. And even just last week, whenever the two bombs exploded in New York City, whenever they had wiring and it hooked up to small machines and they go boom, and we can't label it a bomb. And he says in every single one of these events, don't jump to conclusions.
He goes out of his way to say that.
Don't jump to conclusions.
The left goes out of their way to say that. We don't want to jump to conclusions. Islamophobes, they do that. But when it comes to law enforcement and the black community, it is absolutely,
and it's only escalated.
Mind-boggling.
It's escalated since the Cambridge incident.
That began the whole thing.
And that led us to, like, for example, the whole Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so everyone, you're probably familiar with that situation. He holds a press conference and says, during a press conference or during a speech or something, I don't remember, but in it, he talks about this situation, and he says that Trayvon Martin could, if he had a son, he would look like Trayvon Martin. Now, if you have information, you don't have or whatever, really, do you even need to say that to fuel anything else? Yeah. So, and anyway, this whole incident that occurred, Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, that whole incident that occurred, it was just one bad thing after another that culminated into their meeting, and then a tragic result ended. So I'll say this, and I'm going to use the president's words.
Okay.
Two people who were acting stupidly met that night, and a tragic outcome resulted. You had Zimmerman, who was supposedly, he was out there as a neighborhood watch block captain or something of that nature, and he sees someone that just doesn't look right, something's out of place here, whatever. You could call it whatever you want to call it, but he's out there doing that. Then you have Trayvon Martin, who sees this white cracker honky following him, and so now you have two people who, now, even after the police, because Zimmerman called the police and told them what was going on, and even at that point, the police said, okay, don't do anything. Don't follow him, don't do anything. He ignored that and continued. Stupid. Trayvon Martin sees this guy. He's going to address it. He's going to confront it. Stupid. These two things come together. An altercation occurred, and of course, the results is we all know.
Yeah, and that's so interesting you say that, because when stupid meets stupid, stupid happens.
There's no doubt.
And because and I'm saying that because even Zimmerman, I mean, if you just study his track record, I'm not a fan of that guy. I mean, he's been doing some ridiculous things even since then. But you actually knew, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually knew an officer. You knew an officer that was actually involved with that investigation, with that whole situation with Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin.
Yes. I even called this officer. Now, this was after the investigation had concluded. Now, remind you, the police department, the law enforcement agency was in charge of that investigation. They investigated, and they concluded that there would not be charges brought.
Okay, so that police department studied the whole
investigated,
thing.
With details.
Yes.
With details, and they said that
no charges.
no charges.
Okay, justified shooting.
Okay,
regardless
okay.
of how tragic or whatever. It no charges.
All right.
Everything was within the law. Then we had a big uproar with stand your ground. We won't get into that. Then, but the DOJ jumps right in and says, "Oh no, we're not going to take that. We're going to launch our own investigation." The chief of police was relieved of duty.
Wow.
The DOJ went in and did their own investigation. They appointed a special prosecutor, and they brought charges up. They indicted him, brought charges up, and then it went to court. Well, of course, we all know what happened in the trial. He was acquitted of the charges. Now, here's why my friend that in this police department, I contacted him because I have a friend from my childhood that I grew up with, and we played basketball on the same team. Very good ball player, and he's black, and he was posting things on YouTube. And I was like, I couldn't believe this. I mean, let the system play out, and let the facts, let the truth come out, and let that be that. And so I called my officer friend at that agency, and I asked him it was right after the trial. And I said, listen, is this what happened? And just like we talked about it, two stupid people came together. Bad things upon bad things upon bad things, boom, we have a bad result. And so, but there was no laws broken. Zimmerman didn't break any laws. Trayvon Martin didn't break any laws. He wasn't breaking any laws, but that confrontation still occurred, and the results. So anyway, I asked him, is this what happened? He goes, exactly what happened. We had it right during the investigation, and the trial has it right. The verdict in this trial has it right also.
And then the DOJ tries to come in and prove it wrong, but then and what was their response? I mean, it was.
Then they tried to. I mean, they tried to damage control. They tried to do the best they could. Still looking like they are supporting this uprising. Like, oh no, we're not turning our backs on you, whatever. Isn't it ironic though that the DOJ, and this happened in Ferguson also.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to take what you have investigated and concluded with. We are going to investigate. The DOJ launched their own investigation. And in the Ferguson one, the DOJ, they launched their own investigation. We're here for you. We're going to show that this was a racist shooting. And so in Ferguson, the DOJ gets involved, does their own investigation. And Eric Holder before he puts out their findings, he says this: the police department's prejudiced, racist, but there's not enough to charge Darren Wilson.
See, think about that for a moment. We are so blinded by the lies that are being given. They did their own investigation, then DOJ comes in and does their own investigation and says, you know what? Yeah, nothing wrong actually took place. We can't, we can't put this guy in jail. But yeah, and that was the conclusion that they came up with. But yet they still preface the entire statement with saying the police department is still prejudiced and racist.
Yes. Another interesting situation or fact. After the FBI concluded with Hillary Clinton's email, after they concluded, we don't see anything to pursue charges, did the DOJ launch an investigation? No.
No, they didn't.
Okay,
Where were they
great,
this
fine.
time?
Thank goodness.
It's done
Wow.
the end.
That's it.
They didn't jump in and say, no, we don't care
Wow.
what you say, we're going to investigate. They didn't do that.
Then
Wow.
what is the goal of the DOJ? Because it seems like
Yeah.
every single time that there's a racial issue or there's an issue to stir up the average American people to move into these movements, they're there. They do their investigations. They jump in, even though their basic claims at the end of it is, yeah, they were right, but there's still racism, so we need to get mad about it. Yet, when we have these real big issues like Hillary Clinton's emails, where are they?
Yeah.
What is their goal with this? Why are they stirring up the people?
First, I don't understand why they even get involved in local issues
Yeah.
anyway. Look, we have enough agencies, enough organizations to take care of it, but and again, it's selective. It is selective.
Wow. So I have a special little document that's within this book right here, and it's called The Constitution of the United States of America. Now, on page 47, the very first amendment, which is the Bill of Rights, part of the Bill of Rights, because we have these crazy things happening in Charlotte right now. We have people on television that are a part of these riots, and they're screaming and yelling, I know my rights, I know my rights. Yeah. And I would venture to say that if you're taking part in something that is not a peaceful protest, and you're yelling this, you do not know your rights, because what you're quoting is the First Amendment. Now let me read this. It's towards the bottom of the First Amendment. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble. Peaceably to assemble. Okay, whenever you look at 16 cops being injured in protests, is that peaceable? When Walmarts have been looted, people are throwing rocks at motorists. They're looting semis and catching them on fire. They're looting the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The reporters are being attacked, attempting to throw photographers in the fire. And people being beaten, begging for mercy, and mercy not being shown, but yet they're yelling, I know my rights. And it says, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble. Your thoughts?
Look, just because you're practicing your right, you have no right to violate others' rights. You can't break the law. You can't violate other people's rights while you're exercising yours.
Wow. So here's the thing. So producer's saying we only have a couple more minutes left. What's going to happen? Is America doomed? I mean, are we just going to keep seeing more and more and more shootings? I mean, we've been seeing this every few months. Are we just going to see more shootings and more protests and more riots? How is this going to end?
I believe we will, until we have a leader that stands up and tries to bring calm to America. I believe we are. Now, here's something else that's lending to this problem. As minorities are being empowered to go again, they don't trust the police. Last night I saw on the news this young black lady is screaming, I don't trust the police, I don't trust the police. I could die here, I could die in school. There's hundreds of police officers around her, and she says she's afraid for her life. She could be killed at school. She could be killed here. She could be killed there. And this was all going on while another young black man was hugging the police, and they were attacking him for doing that.
Wow.
So here's the thing. Will this continue? It will continue. And here's why. The rhetoric is being put forth is emboldening people to resist. Here's what we have now. So we have officers going out and answering calls. Listen, before an officer can investigate anything, before an officer can complete his assignment, he has to have control of the situation. So if an officer goes out on the scene and he doesn't have control of the situation, he has to escalate to get that control. And then once we get and maintain control of the scene, now we can conduct our investigation. So, but if you are resisting, if you're walking away, if you're arguing, if you are resisting the officer's attempt to control the situation so he can investigate, I assure you, bad things are going to happen.
Wow.
So the main thing is this: if you are dealt with by law enforcement, stay calm. Do not get in an argument. Cooperate.
Yes.
Hey, prove me wrong.
Yes.
Prove me wrong. Cooperate and see what happens.
Yeah.
Cooperate, stay calm, do exactly what the officers are asking you to do.
That's right.
I assure you, bad things will not happen. But when you walk away, especially if you have a weapon and they say, drop the weapon, and you still walk away, or you're walking away and they say, don't move, stop, show me your hands, and you're still look, what are we to believe? Well, he's not listening to us now. So is he going to go get a gun? What are they doing?
Yeah.
We don't know. And until we have control, we will not be able to investigate to get to the bottom of it. Prove me wrong. That's all I say.
Wow.
Stay calm. Cooperate.
That's good.
And I just want to thank you, Darren, for saying that, because out there right now, if you're watching this, I want you to take in consideration all of Darren's words today, because that's the thing. Do not get caught up in everything the media is telling you to believe. Don't get caught up in all of these stories. Yes, there's a lot going on in North Carolina. Yes, there's a lot going on across the United States right now. There's a lot of hatred that's being spread, but do not allow that to get inside of yourself to start spewing it out, because that is what they want. That is what this whole racist movement right now is wanting us as Americans to get riled up to fight each other like these people in North Carolina. We have to be above that right now. We have to be able to spread the love of Jesus, and over that, we even have to show that we are not going to be caught up by this, and that we can stand firm and know that we are going to stand with our law enforcement, that we are going to stand together as the United States of America, and that we love each other in this nation, and that we are going to back our law enforcement.
Thank you, Sasha. Darren, any final thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. I will tell you this, over my career, this is what I have found. It's not a black issue or white, it's not that. It is it is a poverty issue. And this is what I mean by that. Out of all of the time that I spent in law enforcement, I've seen where the most problems lie, and here's where they lie. When you have a single parent family, and in that family you have nothing but of cigarette, alcohol, and drug abuse, and zero God. That leads to, you have children, they have no role model. They have no discipline. And then they get behind in school. And when I say school, I'm talking about in the early years.
Yeah.
They don't know how to read, write, or do arithmetic. Those very little things. So then they get behind. Well, once you're behind, what are you going to do now? They go to the streets. And it's not, I'm telling you, it's not a black thing. This is everyone. It's a poverty thing. And those common denominators right there is what lends to it.
I couldn't agree more.
Amen. Amen. Wow, this has been a powerful show. We want to hear your responses of what you think on the show. Make sure you comment in the links below and let us hear your opinion and your thoughts on the things that we've been talking about today. Also, don't forget to go and like us on Facebook and to subscribe on YouTube to Revelation in the News. Like I said, we want to be one of your homes for alternative news. Thank you, Darren. This has been a blast, and we'll see you next week.